Haunties! It's Friday in October, and I'm so glad you're here with us for another year of our Halloween mini-series where we dare to ask the question, what's haunting you? Don't know what that is? I'm here to explain it. Each October, Let's Get Haunted opens the vault for What's Haunting You? An annual spooky season mini-series featuring true encounters with the paranormal told directly by those who lived through it. From ghostly apparitions to creatures that just shouldn't exist, these stories prove that sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. Tune in every Friday in October to hear first-hand accounts of hauntings, cryptids, portals, and brushes with the beyond. As Let's Get Haunted asks the only question that really matters: what's haunting you? Now that we got that out of the way, hi, I'm Aly, and I'm your ghost host for the evening. And tonight, I'll be walking you through a couple of true, terrifying tales as told by the people who experienced them firsthand. Tonight, you'll be hearing from Kelsi, who saw a supernatural animal while walking home through the Appalachian woods in 2008. We'll also be hearing from Chelsea, a nurse practitioner who conducted home visits for patients living in rural parts of the Appalachian region. That's right! Tonight is a themed episode full of dark forests, abandoned farmhouses, and ancient mountains teeming with cryptids, ghosts, and the unexplained. So throw on your fall-themed pajamas, grab a cup of hot apple cider, and settle in with your lucky amulet in hopes that these hauntings won't rub off on you. No guarantees, though. Oh, the clock just struck midnight, which means it's time to get started. So, without further ado, hey Kelsi, what's haunting you?
Hi, my name is Kelsi. I'm 35 years old, and in 2008, the fall of 2008, I had a really weird experience that I still can't explain. I had been at college, it was my sophomore year, and my college was located in the Allegheny mountain range in Appalachia. And despite being a pretty big state school, it was really in a rural area. Like it was a confluence of like train tracks because that's just where all of that industry started. It's a town that's close to Pittsburgh, so there's industry there. But really all it had going for it was the college. So as you get further from the outskirts, it's just forest, it's just woods. There's lake after lake that you could swim in with friends. So I've lived in Appalachia my entire life, as far as I can remember. And it's just the best way to describe it is it's old. Like everything here is old. You go to like the creeks and there's such a good chance you're going to find a fossil of something that's 500 million years old. These mountains are older than the dinosaurs. These rounded mountains are just worn down over millions and millions of years, and it is a different kind of quiet in the middle of the night in the woods. I've been camping here. There is nothing like the middle of the night in these woods, in these mountains. You hear things you've never heard anywhere else, and you almost know instinctively not to go looking for it. And there's just these places in the world, I think, that have this like deep stream of energy coming through where like two places meet almost to create the mountains, and like it creates this upward crack that allows almost a concentrated amount of deep old energy to shoot out in that spot because of pressure. Even just in Pittsburgh, there are these three rivers that meet together, and it's symbolic in its own right. There's various Native American lore around where three rivers meet and the kind of energy that spawns from that. So you have the Allegheny, the Ohio, and the Monongahela, and it's just the coincidences that you run into here are just so bizarre that it feels like you're the center of the universe. I had just gone through this friend breakup, and I will always stand by the fact that friend breakups are worse than any actual breakup because they're your everything, they're your person, especially when you're that young. We had a huge falling out, and we both traded roommates. I went to my friend's boyfriend's house. So that house was much different than what I thought I was going to be renting that year for my sophomore year. It was as far back from campus as you could get. This one was like a shack where rail workers used to live, and now it is campus housing. It was bare bones, far back as you could to the woods. The next thing that you would see that was society based would just be train tracks, which led into a big stone tunnel. And I do remember like going back there around Halloween, and it was pretty dead. Like, I don't think that trains actually used that very often, maybe like a track by there because I would hear trains, but I never saw trains going in and out of that tunnel. So I know it was after Halloween, but it was before Thanksgiving break, probably early November, fall of 2008. I'm still kind of figuring things out. I had changed majors. I didn't know who I was. I had a whole new friend group. I didn't know my roommates. And I had started hanging out with these other people that lived a little closer to campus, still on the same side of like campus as me. But it was a 40-minute walk from their house to my house. So I'd been at a party, walking home alone. I remember walking home around 2 a.m. and I had started crying because I missed my friend. I missed what I had had. I felt lonely, and it was just silent too the whole time. Not another person the entire time after like 50 feet away from the house. It had been snowing lightly, but it was the kind of like night that snow would be falling, but it wasn't really sitting on the ground. And the streetlights were kind of illuminating things like a yellow purple, very dreamscapey, incredibly quiet. And you could hear power lines too, because like sometimes that kind of reverberation where it's just totally silent, the wind's not blowing, you could hear the vibration or just like hum of electrical wires. And I was just walking, no headphones in, nothing like that, listening to the wires, crying a little bit. Everything stopped making noise. All of a sudden I didn't feel alone. This feeling that I like had of being totally alone just instantaneously left my body. Like a deep down thing where you just know that you're not alone anymore. Like I felt watched, so much so that I was looking around, and under one of the streetlights that was flickering a little bit, there was a doe. And this is Western Pennsylvania. There are so many deer here. And I saw her and she wasn't moving. And I started taking some steps closer because I was playing a game with myself almost. And she wasn't running away. And I just got kind of weirdly close. This is strange. And this heavy oppressive air that's hanging there. I think in the same way that maybe when you're about to like bungee jump or do something kind of scary, but you want to prove you can do it, I felt that same rush, that same kind of adrenaline rush throughout my body, where I'm like walking up to the edge of the cliff I'm diving off of. I'm in the plane going up with my parachute on. I'm doing this thing that feels very brave to me in the moment as I get closer and closer to this doe. It was almost like I was daring myself, like playing chicken, and I didn't have anything to lose because I was just this emo 19-year-old. And I reached out and I touched its back, and it looked at me, and I took a closer look at it, and it's got no mouth. Like, it's got the regular nose, it's got the jawline. I can almost see its jaw like moving, like the rippling of its fur a little, but it's no line, no lips, no anything. And it's an adult doe. And any kind of like physical deformity like that, I know a lot about animals. That was actually my first major, was pre-veterinary science. So like I know a ton about animals, worked in wildlife rehab. Anything with that kind of deformity, genetic or chromosomal defect, it wouldn't have gone further than being a fawn. It would have been picked off by a predator. Anything, any number of those things, starved to death. So it made no logical physical sense that it would be an adult doe. And it's looking at me. The snow was melting on the ground, so the ground was warm enough, but the snow was landing on the deer and not melting, which is super weird because it's a live creature. So it looks at me and it has the whites of its eyes, very like wide-eyed, and like the sclera, white part of the eye, was visible. And it blinked the eyes one by one, not synchronized blinking like would be a normal involuntary reflex, but one at a time. And then it just turned its head and it ping-ponged away, like the way that like a ball would hit the table and ping pong. It was cartoon. It simply did not have a physical mouth, and I could see the whites of its eyes. And then it moved weird, like the bouncing back and forth, almost synchronized bounces on legs, but not synchronized blinking, like a glitch. And it went into the dark, and it went into the tunnel that the railway that I've never seen a train go through, like this dark, terrifying tunnel at like 3 a.m. and just beep, 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 pinged right in there. It was horrifying. It was horror. And I'm brave and I'm not easily shaken. I'm not easily rocked. I am not squeamish. And I was horrified. Almost this feeling of like you realize something bad has happened and like it has hit you that it has happened and you can't do anything about it. She looked at me and she said, "Do you see what this is now?" Even just right now, I feel like I'm almost going to start crying because it's making me feel that way to kind of think about that deeply, to think about how it affected me in that moment, to realize that something was very wrong. Pit of my stomach, car about to hit a wall, like just something is very wrong and could get worse kind of feeling. She left first. I stood there and watched her leave. I didn't move while she moved. I waited till she was gone to move. And then I spent the remaining block walking back to my house, just telling myself that I didn't see it. And you're wrong. You know, you're exaggerating because you're already scared, you're already emotional. What if she chases me? What if she gets closer? What if she shows what she really is? Because maybe she's not at all anything I know. And I got home as fast as I could, but still kind of as quietly as I could. I remember this just like head down, move fast. Locked the door, was so happy I got inside, got upstairs, and my bedroom window faced this tunnel. And I just stared at that tunnel. Like I didn't fall asleep. I just stared out my window all night long. That's what happened that night. And I told people at college I touched a deer because I thought that was cool, but I also started feeling really weird about it. Like I wasn't supposed to see it. And I know that that sounds cliche, but that's the best way that I have to describe that is it wasn't okay that I saw that. I've been a lot of places. I've seen a lot of spooky things. I've been to Stonehenge. I've been to Loch Ness. I've been to Glamis Castle in Scotland where Macbeth was based off of. Like all of these super old haunted places, but nothing's ever made me feel this like chilled ever. And I don't know. I don't want it to come back. I'm good. I don't know what her intentions were. Like, I don't know what this doe's intentions were. I don't know if like she was some sort of like supernatural creature being, spirit thing that was like sensing a solo walking emotional wreck of a person and feeding off of that. Like, I don't know if she was a predator disguised as a prey animal, if she was some sort of genetic anomaly that miraculously had made it to adulthood, but whatever her intentions were, I don't feel like they were good. So I'm happy I am okay. Saying that I'm glad I saw this kind of anomaly is weird, but I mean, ever since I was a little kid, like I've been reading books about Bigfoot. I've been watching documentaries about Loch Ness monsters. I've been hoping for extinct animals to be found. I think it's the coolest thing. And so to have at least lived part of my life experiencing one thing that's like in that spectrum, yeah, I'm grateful for it.
I'm with Kelsi on this one. While I'm sure it would be hellish in the moment, I'd love to come face to face with something unexplained. Just once, so that I could say that it happened. So if there are any spirits masquerading as faceless deer out there right now, show yourselves. In the meantime, let's hear from our next haunting. Without further ado, hey Chelsea, what's haunting you?
My name is Chelsea. I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. This all started when a friend of mine worked for a company that exclusively did house calls, and they catered to individuals that had difficulty leaving the home. So we would do things like health screening in the home, for example. These people would receive information about the visit via mailer, so that's how we reached them. And what made this job so interesting is that we often didn't have cell phone service. We didn't have GPS where I was driving, so I'd have to navigate to their home via map and with the compass in my car. So I do change my stories for the sake of HIPAA. I'm licensed to practice in 3 different states. So that also makes it a little easier for me to tell these stories because I could really be anywhere. How I got into doing house calls in such rural areas, I worked in an office. I was seeing like 18, 20 people a day. I was working like 50, 60 hours a week. And it's not that I didn't like it. It's just I had a small child at home and I was missing things. And a friend of mine said, I work for this company that does house calls and they need someone to travel. So I would travel 2, 3, 4 hours from my home. They would put me up in a hotel. I would see patients for 2 or 3 days at a time, and then I'd come home and I'd be off for like a week and a half. Now, the purpose of these visits is to go into the home. Sometimes these people don't have primary doctors. Sometimes they don't see anyone all year. And my job is to see, are you taking your meds? Why aren't you taking your meds? Do you understand why you're taking your meds? Are there maybe things going on that your doctor doesn't know about, and that's why you can't do what you're supposed to be doing? Maybe physical therapy can't get into the house. Why? Oh, there's bed bugs. We didn't know that. So I'm to go in and kind of assess the risk of the situation, sort things out, get people reorganized, and then send them where they need to go. Maybe get them set up with a doctor. Maybe call their doctor and say, hey, this isn't going well. They're not taking this med. I called the manufacturer. I can't get a coupon. We need to switch it to this. So I'm not their primary care provider. I guess I'm kind of like putting them back on track, if that makes sense. Especially, like I said, some people don't go to a doctor at all. So sometimes I see them and I'm like, you need to go to the emergency room. That's how I got into this. I decided that I wanted to find a way to reach the community. When I worked in an office, I worked in a specialty area, and I would have people come in to the office and say, like, why am I taking these medicines? And it's for their blood pressure. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing. And I realized, like, there's just no one to sit down with people for an hour and a half, however long they need, and explain to them why they're doing these things. Healthcare, unfortunately, has taken a turn to where the goal sometimes, I think, is to be a well-oiled machine, have someone in front of you for 15 minutes, and then send them on to the next place they need to go. And that's not effective sometimes. So I wanted to get into the community, find the people of those vulnerable populations, find the people with the barriers of healthcare. And I thought that I was just going to change the healthcare system. Now, we all know how that went. You can't just internally change the system, but I do think I changed things for a lot of people. And that's what was important. Helping people find resources for having food, helping people find resources for affording their medications, getting into their homes and seeing how we can better provide healthcare in these more rural, desolate areas. So that's how I got into this. And I think it suits me very well. And I enjoy it. I really do. One of the things people ask me most is, why do you experience so many of these things? And I think what's so interesting is because I work in healthcare, I think science can explain a lot of things. When it comes down to healthcare, when it comes down to spooky experiences, when it comes to life, we're always looking for a rational experience. I have my master's degree. I work as a nurse practitioner. I'm published to the Journal of Transcultural Nursing. I teach at university. There's always a scientific explanation for things behind it. And I think what's so engaging and exciting about these stories for me is that I've really thought about it. I really looked, and I just can't really come up with reason. And that's what makes it spooky. And that's kind of what makes it fun. So I grew up actually living all over the East Coast, military family. My father was in the military. We ended up settling in Ohio. I grew up in the city, and then we ended up in the suburbs when I was a kid. And I always had a bit of an affinity for the paranormal, I guess. It all started with the little boy in the bedroom. When I was a little kid, I had an imaginary friend that was a little girl, and my mom used to say she followed me everywhere, and it was kind of creepy. I do remember bits and pieces, and I remember she generally just stayed in the linen closet area when we lived in the house, and it wasn't strange to me. I always saw her. And then when I was younger, we moved into a more suburban area, and my mom, who is an excellent gardener, she came into the house one day, and she said, there's a little boy in the garden, and it's so strange. He just sits there and he stares at me, and it's like he keeps me company. And I was like, weird. That's weird. Tell it to go away. And she's like, no, he just sits there and he watches me garden. And when I turn, it's like he knows and he's gone. And I'm like, okay, Mom. Well, months go by. She doesn't say anything. And then I'm in the kitchen and my mom goes, I saw that little boy standing by the oven today. And I said, what? She goes, I saw the little boy standing next to the oven today. He's in the house. And I'm like, you say this so nonchalantly. The little boy that watches me garden is now in the house and we're fine with this? And then I started to notice there was like a little static. When the TV is not on a channel that's airing anything and you see that black and white salt and pepper static, there's a static in my doorway. And it moves in spurts and stands at the end of my bed and it waits all night. and I would just lay there. And it didn't make noise, but it looked like a static. And this went on for a long time. And I was telling my mom, I think it's the little boy. It just sits at the end of the bed and it waits. And she's like, I think you're crazy. And I was like, I'm crazy. You're the one who let it watch you garden. You let it come in the house and you didn't do anything. Well, this goes on for a while. And then eventually I'm like, you gotta leave. Like, you're causing me stress. I can't sleep. I'm waking up. My fitted sheets on the ground. My family thinks I'm crazy. So I hear a crash in the middle of the night. I wake up. My antique bedroom set, which was from my grandma, which was passed down to her, the very large round mirror has like a glow coming from it. The static walks halfway down across my bed. I see the little boy then. He steps onto the chair that I sit to do my makeup on, steps onto the desk, walks into the mirror, never saw him again. Never saw him again. And that was the first like actual paranormal experience where I saw something. The first paranormal experience I had in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains, that was the doll experience. Now, I'm going to start this story by telling you, I actually have a picture of the outside of this residence because I was concerned that perhaps I wouldn't come out. So I took a picture as soon as I got out of the house while I was walking to my car. I wanted a picture of the street signs at the crossroads so that I could pinpoint it. I looked at that picture the other day and the street signs have no words on them. None whatsoever. It's just green. Like, there's no way to tell where I was. So I arrived at the home. I pull up to the house. I'm on a gravel road, and I'm driving up the road. There's a cemetery to my right, very old, very beautiful. And then you make a right turn. There's graves on both sides. You go up the street. It goes to another farm road. I pull up to this house. The driveway is almost non-existent. There's scattered things within the property. Cats everywhere. Get out of the car, walk up this ramp. I get to the door. I knock. Someone opens the screen door. It's an elderly woman. And I could tell immediately, before I even entered the home, there was a hoarding situation going on. Not uncommon to see with what I do. And what's most important to me is that people know that I'm willing to come in the house. I'm not judging you based on your house. It is totally fine. I will meet you where you are. So she leads me into the house. And what's very interesting is the walkways are so narrow and the accumulation of things is so high that you can't even see like what's in front of you. She leads me throughout the home, and then we come to a clearing, which is a sitting room. There's a bit of furniture here and there, but the first thing I notice when I walk in the room is that there are 5 dolls about the height of my size Barbie, about the size of a toddler, and they're dressed in clothes. And then there's 3 small rocking chairs, and there's smaller dolls sitting in them. And they're all in a half circle facing around the television. Television is on. This person takes a seat. They motion for me to take a seat. So I start asking questions. It's going on just fine. This person's carrying a conversation. And then she says, hang on. She says, can you turn the kids around? And I looked at her and I said, I apologize, but I'm not allowed to touch personal property when I'm in somebody's home. Kind of glaze over it, start asking my questions again, getting a health history, talking to her about some concerns that she has. And she stops me abruptly, mid-sentence. And she goes, you need to turn them around because they like to watch. I apologize. I can't do that. Go on with my job. And at this point, I'm trying to figure out, are we confused? Do we know what's going on? And then again, I'm cut off and she goes, you need to turn the kids around. They're getting angry. I turn to her to go take her vitals. I look back at the dolls and the doll is turned halfway around. And I know for a fact it was not like that when we came back in the room. I know it wasn't. I looked at it. She sat down. I'm doing my job. I look back up. It's turned. And that's when I'm like, who do you live with? Is anybody home? And the answer to that was no. I go to leave the house and I notice there's an upstairs that wasn't shown to me. And I was like, what's up there? Because there's a little bit of a smell, right? It's like a pretty rancid smell. And she said, you can't go up there. And I said, okay, why? And she goes, I don't know. I don't go up there. And at that point, I was like, okay, we're all done. I walk to the exit of the home accompanied by this person. And then I go to leave. I have my right hand on the door, got my bag on my right shoulder. I open the door. I go to turn. I raise my hand. I go, bye. And she grabs my wrist. So I said, do you need anything else? And She didn't say anything. And I said, can I help you with something? She didn't say anything. And I said, okay, well, it was very nice meeting you. I thank you for having me. And I'm like power walking to my car. I got in my car. I'm like, the whole situation doesn't feel right. I still think about that doll. She said, can you turn the kids around? And she's pointing at these dolls, and I'm looking at these dolls, and I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at these dolls, and she looks at me, and I'm like, no. And this doll, very clearly, I mean, I don't mean moved a little bit. I don't mean shifted a little bit. I mean, this doll turned around as if it was trying to look at me. And that is when I could feel the hair on the back of my neck and just goosebumps. Oh, it's happening again. And it's interesting because I don't think I've ever before experienced the feeling of being watched by an inanimate object and so sure that it was looking at me. But that was something, and I do not want to do that again. Several weeks later, I'm again doing house calls. I get an assignment out to this house. So I was doing a visit, and again, I'm on this gravel, desolate road driving into someone's property. I turn left and I go over a single width bridge, it's like one car bridge. I go down, and then there was a barn. The barn is to the right, the house is far to the left. So I have to get out of my car, and there's a clearing to get to the house. And I get out of the car, and I hear kids running around and playing. Not unusual. I know it's a nice day outside. And then I hear, hello. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'm getting my things out of the car. And I turn around, start to walk towards the house. I'm getting near the car. And then I see there's a man in some overalls, just plain old denim overalls, doesn't have a shirt underneath. I said, hello. And then I make my way to the house. I get to the house. I knock on the door. The person said, oh, you're a bit early. And then I had said something to the effect of, heard you call for me. And she said, I didn't say anything. She said, I didn't realize you were here. And I said, oh, I thought I heard you call for me. And she said, no. And I was like, okay, it's kind of weird. But we sit down, we start talking. And then I always ask this question, who do you live with? And she said, oh, I've lived here X amount of years. I live alone. I own like 100 acres. And I was like, oh, you live alone? Like all this acreage, you live alone. You do a really good job with all of the upkeep. She said, yeah. I said, so the guy outside, does he work for you then? Is that who that gentleman is? Does he maintain the property? Is he a worker? And she got quiet for a sec, and she said, it's out there? I'm like, the car that he's working on? The guy working on the car? I said, yeah, he's out there. And that's when she just stared at me, and I'm like, I don't think we're talking about the car. What do you mean it's out there? Like, what do you mean? And she said, you have to leave because it's going to rain, and then you won't be able to make it out. I'll make you a sandwich. And I was like, what do you mean? It's not going to rain. It's the middle of the afternoon. It's completely clear outside. Also, why are you making me a sandwich? I'm not quite done with the visit yet. I thought I had insulted her in some way, which was my concern. I'm trying to figure out what I did. And she just kept saying, like, you have to go. It's going to rain. You're not going to be able to make it out of the pass. In my head, it's not making sense. And why are you trying to give me this sandwich? Then she's like, you gotta go. You have to go. And I turn around, we walk through the doorway, and I'm looking out the picture window, the front of the house, and it's dark outside. But it's the middle of the afternoon. I'm like, what is going on? She opens the door. She like hustles me out the door, hands me the sandwich, closes the door. So now I'm on the front porch. It's pitch black in the middle of the day. Like, what am I going to do with this sandwich? So I'm like, well, what do I do? The front porch light's on. No noise whatsoever. No noise. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to walk from this front porch to my car. I start walking. I see the car. And there's no noise until I start hearing what I can only describe as the swishing that you hear when denim rubs against denim. When someone's walking around in jeans. And it's like I can feel someone parallel to me. I am walking to my car at a brisk pace, not a run, and I can hear it. Drop the sandwich, grab my keys out of my pocket, unlock. Get in my car, lock the door. I go to turn around. Don't see anybody when I go to turn around. Heard it, felt it, horrendous. Now, I know how long it takes for me to drive up like a back road and get to someone's house, particularly because I have to get back and I don't have GPS. So I have to pay attention to things. How far away was the bridge? Where is the main route? Was I traveling east, west, north, south, whatever, because I have to get back to the main route. And now it's dark. So I make my way down the road. There is one exit from this home. There's one driveway. It goes to a single width bridge and then to the main road. And I'm driving and I'm not seeing the bridge and I'm driving. It's like 15, 20 minutes now and I am still driving and there's nothing. It's dark outside. I haven't found this bridge and that's how I came in. So eventually I come to a part of the road where there's a brick stone arch sort of thing, like a bridge underpass. It's the only place to go. I'm not turning back around. So I drive under it. It's dark in the tunnel. I get to the other side. It's daytime. It never rained. It made no sense why she was like, it's gonna rain and then you're going to be stuck here. There was never any rain. And I still don't understand the sandwich. So I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what the sandwich thing was. Never rained. I went back to find the road after the fact. So I could not wrap my head around this. I was driving the same main route a couple of days later. And I know there's the rock formation on the side, and then there's a tree, and then you turn left, and then there's the single car with bridge, and it takes you down the road. And that road was not there anymore. The road was not there anymore. I can't explain it. Like it wasn't, and I know it's strange, but it wasn't behind me. It was like parallel. And for me, for some reason, that almost made it worse because I was thinking, if I turn my head, like, am I going to see it? What am I going to see? Is this not a guy? I thought it was just a guy, but you're calling it, which is why I was so focused on look at the car, do not turn and look next to you because that's where I hear it. I still don't understand the sandwich. So I ended up posting this story on TikTok. A lot of people liked the video. A lot of people left comments about what they thought the sandwich was. Because again, I have no idea. And some people had said, well, maybe it was an offering for whatever it was outside. Or maybe it was a gesture of goodwill of this woman giving you something saying that you were a welcomed visitor and so nothing should happen to you. All I know is that it was given to me. It was insisted that I take it. And it was just kind of dropped along the way. It was either keep the sandwich or grab my car keys out, and the sandwich didn't seem worth it at that point. But I've had a lot of people say things about skinwalkers. I have had some people from this region talk about skinwalkers and how things aren't quite how they seem. I've had people say, enjoy the trees, but don't look in the trees. And then I have people that say, you know, I've lived in this region my entire life, and I have never seen anything or had any reason to believe anything like that. But the way she referred to this as it was strange, very strange. But when I came to the house, I heard kids playing, but when I left the house, I didn't hear that. All I know is that I don't think there were children there. I really can't tell you what it was. I don't think that it was actual children, though. So I went to a person's house, and again, I'm very careful to not make comments about the state of the home. It's not my job to judge people. It's my job to meet them where they are. So I get to the door, the person comes to greet me, and I notice right off the bat, there's a bunch of flies that came when the screen door opened. And I walk in and there's no furniture, but there's blankets folded on the floor. We've got newspaper on the floor, trash on the floor. I feel like some squishing and crunching under my feet. So there's a layer of something on the floor. This person sits down on the floor and gestures for me to do the same. Of course, no problem. When I sit down, I immediately realize it is moist. It is soaking into my uniform. These blankets are not dry. There are flies everywhere during the visit. Like, I mean, hundreds of flies in the home. And this person does not necessarily seem too bothered by it. And I'm not going to make a big deal of it. So we're going through the visit. And you know how mosquitoes have a tendency to kind of like buzz in your ears and your face? These flies are coming at my eyes and my mouth. I had a couple land on my forehead. I've got a laptop in one hand, right? I'm sitting on the floor. I've got my bag to my left. And I've got flies like landing on my face, landing on my forehead. I'm having to wave them out of my eyes. These flies are landing on my face and going towards my eyes. And at this point, I'm like, this is overstimulating, overwhelming. I'm asking this person questions, and they are speaking in multiples, not third person. It wasn't like they were speaking in third person. It is like they were speaking in multiples. Like there's a distinguishable difference that's difficult to explain. But I had said, who do you live with? And they had said, we live here. And then I had said, well, you and who else? Who is we? We live here. So mid-visit, I still asking my questions, doing the best I can to be polite. Things are going okay. And then a fly comes flying at my eye. I blink and duck to kind of try to avoid it. And I blinked down on the fly. So now the fly is in my eyeball. It's actually the right eye. Drop my laptop. I'm rubbing my eye. I'm blinking, trying to get it out. I've got a tissue in my pocket. Took the tissue out and got as much of the fly out as I could. My eye is very aggravated. Like, I was supposed to work the next day. I couldn't. Like, my eye doesn't want to open all the way. I got all the fly out that I could. I come back from my trip, takes me 3 or 4 hours home. I have my one eye closed because it's super irritated. I get home, I wake up the next morning to go to the eye doctor because I took the day off. My eye is killing me. And I noticed on my kitchen window, I've got like 3 or 4 flies. And then my basement door, I have like 50, 60, 70 flies, like all buzzing against the glass door. And I'm like, great, there's probably a garbage bag left in the basement or something. I open the door, all of the flies fly out. Didn't think much of it. My eye is hurting, so I go home and I go to my eye doctor, tell my boss, because she's like, well, this would be a workers' comp claim. Go to the eye doctor, and I'm like, listen, I've like irrigated it out, and like it hurts. I think I have like an abrasion. So they go in, they flip my eyelid upside down, and they're like poking in there, and they're like, oh yeah, looks like you still have like a piece of the wing and like piece of like the leg. I'm like, are you serious? I thought that would have just come out. And then I'm thinking, after I leave the eye doctor, okay, I have the day off. I have these eye drops. My eye is feeling a little bit better. I'm going to stop at Taco Bell and get a Baja Blast, because if you can't salvage the day with the Baja Blast, then I don't know. It's just done for you. I get to the drive-thru. Everything's fine. My windows were down when I was driving. Now I'm at a standstill in the drive-thru. It's warm. So I'm like, I'm going to turn my AC on. Turn my AC on, and flies come out of my AC vents. And I don't mean like, oh, a fly or two. No, I mean flies. Like, I mean 30, 40, 50 flies. Like, enough where the lady at the Taco Bell drive-thru, flies are just coming out of my air vents. I am like, you have got to be kidding me right now. Like, this is disgusting. My windows are down. They leave out my windows. I'm like, okay. I'm trying to pass this off as a coincidence because I don't like this. This isn't great. I get home. I open the door. Flies. I have flies in my house for several days. And I don't mean a fly here, a fly there. I mean, like, I have a fly problem. Okay? I live on a farm. We have horses. We have chickens. We have farm cats. Flies aren't an unusual thing. But I have never seen a fly thing like this. Even my husband was like, what is going on here? I'm like, I don't know. I used to work at a convent. I was pretty close with a lot of the priests and the nuns. And I'm talking to one of the priests, and I'm like, listen, I know this sounds odd, but I had this really strange encounter with this person, and I had a fly that was stuck in my eyeball. Now it's like everything in my life is just going wrong, and my house is infested with flies. My husband just thinks we're looking for garbage. We're looking for, like, what happened? And then they came out of my air vents. I'm like, it feels like something's wrong. Like this is some kind of omen. And he took my confession. And then he told me, you need to tell it to go away. And I was like, me? You're going to tell me to tell it to go? I'm like, no, you put on your priest outfit. You come over and tell it to go away. I don't want to do that. I don't even want to deal with the fact that it's happening at all. And he's like, I'm retired. I'm like, you can't retire from the Lord. Put your priest outfit on. I'm not doing this. Because I couldn't force him to go with me because he was technically a resident and that would be kidnapping. And the last thing I needed, in addition to being haunted, was going to jail. I go home. I'm like, you need to leave. You need to leave. Now, there's this piece of scripture I have. I was raised Byzantine, which is a type of Catholicism, like Roman Catholic, but they're angrier. They're Russian, you know? They believe in transubstantiation. That's basically what makes the church different. Our priests would talk about exorcisms. In fact, baptism in our culture, in our religion, is called the exorcism. So we're very much aware of the paranormal from a young age. I am not Catholic anymore. I consider myself spiritual. But there's this piece of scripture. It's Psalm 6, verse 8 till 10. And the reading goes, go away, all you who do evil, for the Lord has heard my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord will answer my prayer. May all of my enemies be disgraced and terrified. May they suddenly turn back in shame. And he said, tell them to go away. And he had referred to that. And I remember coming home and thinking, you might think that I'm locked in here with you, but you're locked in here with me. And I was like, this is my house. Like, I have kiddos here. I have a life here. I have a husband here. And like, I'll be damned. We're not doing this. You can pack your shit and take the next train out. Slowly, the flies cleared, which was enough to stress me out as it was, because that little piece inside of me kind of hoped that nothing would happen. And it was just a bag left in the basement that maggots formed on, and then flies came from it. But they left. The issue cleared within days. And then I'm laying in bed. Mind you, I had to sweep up these flies. We had like dustpans of flies to take out. Laying in bed, this whole issue has cleared. And then I notice there's a corner of my bedroom wall in the corner. It's just darker. And I notice something moving. And I'm laying there, and this body drags itself out of the corner of the bedroom. Its head is contorted and turned around. So its hands are faced like this on the wall. Its head is turned around. It has one leg, and it's dragging its torso across the ceiling. It dragged itself across the ceiling. It dragged itself over the bed. It dragged itself around the corner, and it dragged itself into a closet of the upstairs. And I never saw it again. I never saw it again. It never bothered me again. And it pulled itself out of a corner of my bedroom, and it had one leg. And I remember looking at it because it had one leg. And I was like, was that your leg? Like, is that what was in my eye? Like, was it your leg that I brought home with me? Like, is that why you're here? Like, it's almost like I took it with me, like it followed me home. And after it drug itself into that closet, I never saw it again. I just remember that it had long black hair and it looked wet. It looked very wet. Like, it had clothing on it and it just looked wet. Like, from the hair to what it was wearing, the way it hung off of it, almost as if it was like something was trying to pull it off the ceiling, and it just clung. It just clung onto the ceiling and pulled itself. It was very strange. Yelp review, 0 stars. Would not recommend. Don't want to do again.
Haunties. Chelsea had so many stories that it was really difficult just to pick a couple. So if you need even more Appalachian ghost stories like I did, go check out her TikTok by clicking on the link in the show notes below. Thank you all so much for tuning into our 13th ever installment of our mini-series, What's Haunting You? I hope you had as much fun as I did listening to these very scary stories tonight. And it would appear that no Appalachian spirits have materialized here in the studio with me, even though I called upon them. So I guess we survive another week. See you guys next week when it's Nat's turn to curate some spooky interviews. Bye!